All right, once again, welcome to Johnny D Talks to the Stars. This time around, we've got a really legendary star that's been in a lot of TV shows, movies, and even does some voices for some of the cartoons and stuff. Her name is Kathy Garver. Welcome, Kathy.
Well, thank you, Johnny D. I'm very happy to be here.
So how are things going?
Things are great. I narrowly missed the fires out here in California. We had a warning to evacuate, and so I quickly grabbed the things that I could, and my husband and I left, and my son and my daughter-in-law were stalwarts, and they said, well, we're going to stay in the house, and my son's watering the roof and everything. But thankfully, the wind shifted, and we were fine. And my heart still goes out to all those people that lost their homes.
Sure, and thankfully nothing happened to your home in your area there. And so, how did you get into the business of show business?
Oh, I started a long time ago when I was probably 3 years old, and I went to the Medlin Kiddies studio. And the Medlin Studios was where Shirley Temple was discovered. And so I think my mom thought, oh, I'm going to be the next Shirley Temple. But I'm happy being the Kathy Garver. But that's where I learned to tap dance and sing. And so that was my first entree into the business.
I know you started in, doing some bit parts like in the Ten Commandments and also the Night of the Hunter, correct?
Right. Yes, the Ten Commandments I was just supposed to be an extra, one of my first jobs. And Cecil B. DeMille saw me in the wagon going down through the Red Sea. And he says, wait, keep that little girl's face, get out of the camera. I'm saying, oh, what did I do? And it was because he picked me out, as he was wont to do, of all these people. And he wrote scenes into the movie for me. And so I had scenes with Charlton Heston as he rescues me off this papier-mâché mountain at Paramount Studios. And that was a wonderful beginning to my career. And I actually did do Night of the Hunter before that, which was just this really thrilling movie with Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters and Lillian Gish, Billy Chapin. And interestingly enough, they are now making a remake of this movie.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah, it was deemed one of in the top 100 of the best psychological thrillers ever, directed by Charles Lawton.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to my agent because I want to play now, instead of the little girl, and double for her, the Lillian Gish part.
The Lillian Gish role would be great, and that would be a great thing. I mean, that Night of the Hunter, just to go on that, I mean, when it first came out, folks didn't understand it. It's almost like one of the rare movies that folks just didn't understand what was going on, but it became a classic through time. Charles Lawton thought, I mean, he'd passed not thinking Night of the Hunter was ever going to be a classic, and here, many, many years later, 70 years later, it's one of the best films made from the 1950s.
That's right. And he was so distraught that it got bad reviews. That was his first movie that he ever directed. And so he had great hope for it. And he never directed another movie again. And it was because of those reviews. And as you say, became this incredible classic. And they teach it even in colleges and universities.
Oh, sure. I mean, that famous with his knuckles, when you see love and hate on both of those. I think even Spike Lee here about 25, 30 years ago used that in one of his movies, just in a different variation thereof.
Yes, and when I did a speech, I think it was at Brigham Young University, and I was saying, well, and I did this movie LOVE and HATE on the knuckles, and I said, have you ever heard of Night of the Hunter? All these hands went up. And that's when I knew that they were using it as teaching because the lighting was so good. It was like this German expressionism type of filmmaking. And you're right, the people that saw it didn't really get it, but it lingered and it was really scary. At the time, I showed my 12-year-old son, I mean, now he's 33, this movie, and I said, how did you like it? And he says, I loved it, Mom. Look, LOVEHATE on his hand. I says, oh, that's great. That's just wonderful, honey. So I didn't want my son to become a crazed preacher with those tattoos.
Oh, yeah, almost like the...
Very nice young man now.
Like, it was like almost to the point of a Terminator, basically coming after those two kids with that little dolly that had the money in it.
Right. Yes.
Well, I mean, so we did a couple of that, in the 1950s, and came the 1960s, and a lot of more changes in your career. I mean, obviously, we're going to go to Family Affair, which is a big blockbuster from the 60s and early 70s. Can you tell us a little about Family Affair?
Well, it's interesting because there was a doll in Family Affair,
Oh,
Mrs.
yes.
Beasley,
Yes, indeed.
that became almost as big a character as Buffy and Jody and me, Cissy, Uncle Bill and Mr. French. And it kind of goes all circle because now I'm the celebrity representative for Ashton Drake, who makes the Mrs. Beasley dolls. And they are so popular, these dolls, still to this day. And I didn't think back then they would know that Family Affair would become such a classic. They thought that, but they did not think that there would be so many platforms that were open to it, like MeTV and Roku and streaming. And these words didn't even exist when Family Affair was made. But because it is classic, and Don Fedderson, who is the producer, we wore classic clothes, and you look at some of the sets, and I mean, that could be right today, you go look at a home for sale, it's a new home and they have the same kind of layouts and everything. And the stories were very classic and remain very strong today. So yeah, that was a good TV show to do. I love it. And I'm, as I say, I'm the representative for the Mrs. Beasley dolls that were totally sold out this year. They brought in new, like, Mrs. Beasley ornaments, collectible.
Wow.
And the doll itself was sold out. So anyway, yeah, I'm a classic, John.
Well, I mean, bringing back Mrs. Beasley, I remember, as a kid playing with my neighbor, we would play mom and dad, and Mrs. Beasley was one of our daughters. So, I mean, basically, it was an older doll, Mrs. Beasley, but I remember we would be, my gosh. And so it brings back memories and everything for myself too with Mrs. Beasley, because I remember our neighbors having the Mrs. Beasley doll. And so you were Cissy, and you had Jody and Buffy. Some memories of Jody and Buffy and working with Johnny Whitaker and Nyssa.
Yeah, well, they were good. I was kind of the workhorse of the show because Brian Keith had this contract, the same that Fred McMurray had with My Three Sons. They were produced by the same people. It was very difficult at that time to get movie stars to do that horrible little box in your living room TV. So they put a lure out and they said, okay, look, you only have to work like 35 days out of the year. We'll shoot all of your scenes. And we were doing 39 episodes at that time. And an episode, a season was 39, not 8, like it is today. Hello. And the biggest lure was that they would get financial part of the show. So that was, so that's what brought Brian Keith into it. And he was wonderful to work with. I'd worked with him on The Crusader when I was a little girl. And Sebastian was absolutely fabulous, very, very stolid, and you had to learn his lines word by word. And the kids were kids. They were just asked to be natural, to learn their lines, to go to where they're supposed to stand. And so they did a good job at that.
So what was it like? I mean, and you mentioned again, obviously working with everybody, but here you are one day. You just all of a sudden, because I know Family Affair, hit it big time right away, and it stayed pretty popular even when CBS decided to get rid of the shows, all the rural shows, all the family shows. They kind of got rid of in a matter of like 1970 or so, and that show was still up there in the ratings, right?
Oh yes, it was in the top 10, for 4 years, and then the 5th year, it started to dwindle a little as the whole complexion of society and culture was changing, and the Vietnam War was coming in, and CBS says, we need something more realistic and less rural, as you said. So that instead of Family Affair, it became All in the Family.
Sure.
But the show, as I said, had such strong legs that people love it. It's still today.
And basically, I mean, you did Family Affair again for about 5 years there, and then in modern day, you've done a lot of other shows, obviously. But however, I mean, from a list of going back to the Adam 12 and all during that time period, you did a lot of other shows. But I mean, but modern day, you've done a lot of work with like Spider-Man and other series voiceovers, correct?
Right. I had a whole voiceover career where I play Firestar in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and that is still running. We did that in the 80s, but it's on Disney. Disney bought Marvel,
Okay.
and so that's one of their real strong shows that they have on their Saturday Disney, and they're doing a live action of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and I want to play Aunt May.
Okay.
So from Lillian Gish, playing Rachel Cooper in Night of the Hunter, to Aunt May in Spider-Man, but that's live action that they're going to do. But I did the series Chuck Norris Karate Commandos as Pepper, and I did Dixie's Diner. We did that, and Mattel brought out some, actual little dolls and play sets, and so we did all that for Dixie. And I love that. And I've done like 70 audiobooks and 4 Audie Awards that I have received for doing voiceovers for that.
Wow.
And lately I've been doing some movies. I did The Empty Church, which premiered last year, and Yellowbird also that premiered last year. And then Christmas at Roanoke Ranch is going to be Christmas in July for this year in 2025. And I'm slated to do The Thing About Pickles that we are going to shoot in from April to May. And I'll be doing that with Charlene Tilton, who was in Dallas, and with Suzette Brown. And she was in The Empty Church. So, and also a movie called Gus that I will be doing the end of February. So keeping busy there. And I have a new book out. I have a new book that's coming out.
Yes.
I've done like 5 books that are still available for anyone that would like to read them or hear them. I did the audiobook of them as well. Surviving Cissy, which is my memoir. And I did the Family Affair cookbook and holiday recipes for a family affair, and ex-child stars, where are they now? These are all available on my website. And they're also available on Amazon. And we're almost finished with this book called Romancing with the Stars. This chronicles the longtime relationships of Hollywood. It could be a very thin book, but we have found some nice long relationships. Ruth Buzzy and her husband, Kent Perkins, they're in it. And I call Frankie Avalon today. I ran into him at a restaurant close to where I live. I hadn't seen him in 60 years, I think.
My goodness.
And he said, "I know you." And I said, "I know you." And he recognized me from this commercial I do for phones. And he says, "You're the phone lady." And I says, "And you're Frankie Avalon." So anyway, he has been married 60 years.
My goodness, that is cool. 60 years. Say that. I do remember you from the phone commercials. I mean, obviously, I said, well, one day I'm like watching, I think it was Roku TV, and they had you right there, and I said, that's Cissy from Family Affair.
Good eye, John D. Good eye.
I mean, actually, many years ago, I crossed paths with a guy named Anthony Herrera, who was a character actor, and he was from here down in Mississippi. And I told him, "I've seen you on the New York Times commercial." And he goes, "Oh yes," but and it's funny. A lot of folks like to be seen in a lot of their commercials, and it's like you do a lot of the television, but obviously the commercials. Look at like Tom Selleck now doing all these commercials for. He's peddling a lot of things and stuff like that. So I mean, you find that also a pretty good career doing commercials, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah. Tom Selleck's doing the reverse mortgage commercials, and his mother was in a club that I'm in called Motion Picture Mothers Club, and his mother was the president of that. I'm on the board of directors of that, and also the Thalians board of directors. But people know me more now. I think that you did those commercials. Oh, I see you on that commercials all the time. I said, okay, because actually, it's I guess good PR because you know, that you can't get me out of your living room.
I mean, you're there, and it's yeah, you're good PR, and when you say, hey, where's your resume at? I mean, you really need one. I mean, you obviously know your career, you've done so many things, but yeah, you can say, there's a commercial right there. You've seen me on TV.
Right. You know, and people know me maybe from Family Affair, which was a couple years ago, and I had different color hair, and says, is that girl, was that one that does the phone commercials, was she on Family Affair? Yes, yes, yes.
So again, you did a lot of other series. I mean, in between all of this stuff, there was, I mean, from modern day to going back to Family Affair. You did in between. You did like going back to Adam 12, Ben Casey, Daniel Boone. Any one of those shows stand out to you? I mean, Insight, which I've always been a fan of Insight because I find that almost like a version of. It's at times almost like a version of Twilight Zone. In a way, because it's done so well. It's done. I see you've done several episodes of Insight even.
Yeah, Brian Keith did some insights, and that was all done by a priest, and they were just the really telling tales. And I think Robert Culp was in the episode that I did, and he played a murderer, and I was, you know, we were a frightened family, but they all had moral to them, and that's kind of the way the Family Affair was.
Oh yes.
There was like a little moral at not, you know, right in your face. It was just embedded in the story that was told. And so that kept everybody's attention and very relatable.
I mean, that is one thing I miss from television. I mean, the Family Affair, those stories when, like, your uncle, I mean, Brian Keith, your Uncle Bill is talking to you and the kids, Jody and Buffy. I mean, and this, like you said, they really touched the heart. I mean, and that's going also, you know, other stories, obviously, you know, Little House on the Prairie, Michael Lannon's version. Is there, I mean, today, I don't see too many stories that go into that realm of getting to your heart. It's more like action and different acting, but very rare do you go to stories like Family Affair or Little House on the Prairie or Highway to Heaven where they touch your heart big time.
Well, it's interesting. Even Ghosts, that movie, I like Ghosts, and Chuck Lorre. I mean, and this is a very popular show.
Oh yes, yes.
And there's something always very heartfelt at the end of those stories. And the producer and writer, the chief writer of Family Affair, Edmund Hartman, was the president of the writers Union and Guild, and I said, I remember so vividly having lunch with him one time, and we were talking about Family Affair, and he says, well, writing is, in a classic story, he says, it's like climbing a palm tree. So you start out at the bottom, you climb up, you know, it's a problem climbing up, you sit at the top, you have the climax and boom, and then you go down. So problem, rising to the top, and denouement, the big word, of the coming down. And that kind of classic structure that people can relate to, you know, added to the heart of, you know, our particular show, which was kind of based on a little treatise to begin with, these orphans, you know, and they've lost their parents and they're a sea, and here's this, you know, beautiful, you know, this bachelor uncle that comes and rescues them.
And so, you know, so where do you see, okay, I know you say you got another book coming out. What more do you have planned for your future?
I'm going to write another book after that. And we're working on a project in Australia to do based on Pollyanna. And I would play Mrs. Snow, not Pollyanna. So that's coming to fruition. And then I'm going to be a spokesperson, an expanded one, not only for Mrs. Beasley dolls, but for the whole baby doll line for Ashton Drake. And I have my website if people would like to keep up with me, and that's KathyGarver.com, KathyGarver. You know, not Not that I'm promoting myself.
No. That's
Also come and
keep
be
on
my
going. I mean, I love you to go on and tell us everything what you got around the corner. And certainly, it has been a pleasure to talk to you. And again, bring back memories. I grew up watching Family Affair. I mean, for the first round, caught that in the when I was growing up in the late '60s, early '70s, and then through the reruns, it's just one of those things. Now you can catch it on like Roku television, all these other platforms out there. I mean, and just like before we go, let me ask you: do you? I mean, when you go out on the street today, you still look a lot like you did. I mean, 55, 60 years ago. I mean, you haven't changed much. And so you get a lot of people that come up to you still on the street and say, like you said, you recognize Frank Avalon, he recognized you, but you get like a younger crowd now that catches it like on some of these platforms that say, hey, wow, there's Cissy from Family Affair.
No, they say, oh, that's that girl from the phone commercial.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But that's great. But it's great to be doing commercials or series or any other TV shows and movies and stuff. It's again has been a pleasure to have you on my show here, and I wish you much more luck, many more years of luck in the world of show business.
Thank you very much, John D. I enjoyed being here and talking with you.
And also, on top of that, keep avoiding those fires over there. Good luck with that stuff
Oh,
over there.
yeah, right. Maybe we'll get some more water. We have water. It's just, it needs to be better managed.
Oh, indeed.
We pray that happens and that our fire hydrants are full. What a concept.
All righty. Well, thank you once again. You take care, okay?
You too. Thank you.